much, plays into the education system. And so just in the nutshell, that is what MeetMentors saw as a need. And we thought of how to provide a solution to that problem. And so that is basically what we do as an organization. Our main focus as an organization is that we provide academic mentoring, we provide career and entrepreneurship mentoring, we provide training on talent and leadership development. We realize that to be able to be successful in whichever career that one chooses, these things are very important. And so these are the main focal areas of our organization. Our vision as an organization is to make mentorship opportunities easily accessible to college students, recent graduates, and talented youth in Africa. So that is basically what we stand for as an organization. Our mission is to employ technology through innovation, partnership, and collaboration to provide mentoring that enhances the same areas: academic, talent, career, and leadership development. And so we as an organization stick to this. Our values that guide what we do as an organization will look at potential, we'll look at integrity, we'll look at teachability, we'll look at ownership. We believe that every single person has a potential that needs to be developed. And that is very, very important to us. So when people come to us for support, first of all, we try to look for what is in them, the potential they have, and we believe everybody has it. We believe that success without integrity, as we say here at MeetMentors, is a risk adventure. And so we try to promote that aspect of living a life of integrity as you pursue your goals in life. And then we believe that a person must have that mindset and a heart to be teachable so that mentors can impact, to them. And then we believe in the ownership side, basically talks about the fact that we are all responsible for whatever vision we have, whatever dream we have. It is important to get mentors in your life, but then mentors cannot fix for you what you need to work on yourself. And so taking that sense of ownership is also something that we really value at MeetMentors. The main program that we do as an organization is that we provide one-on-one mentoring. And as Angie said, initially, MentorHackathon has been a signature program that has been on our heart. We are very happy that we're able to roll it out this year. In the upcoming years, we will be having this as an annual program as well. We provide career and academic workshops in partnership with organizations. We also do mentoring awareness. And so for those of you who are a bit familiar with us, one of the things we do on our blog post is to share the mentoring stories of people who have seen impact in their lives through mentoring. So we do that to be able to create awareness to younger people and also to everyone that mentoring is important. And then we also embark on research to be able to support the data to give us the data that we need to be able to provide the right training. And that was why Angie mentioned initially that in this program, we will be doing some short surveys. It is for us to be able to get the right information to provide the right programming. And then the last slide I have here on the organization is about our current partners. So currently we have partnership with the University of Ghana. We have partnership with Student Hub, which is a student development organization as well. We have partnership with Africademics, and the founder is going to be talking, as you have heard already. We also have partnership with Talents in Africa. So what we do, as I mentioned in our mission, is to be able to build strategic partnerships with organizations that share the same values, that share the same vision or similar vision in this area of people development. And I know there are a lot of people on this platform right now. I want to say that if your organization is interested in partnering with MeetMentors in the area of mentoring and developing people, please feel free to connect with us. Our website is there. You can see it here. Our email address is there as well. And we are very active on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can connect with us on all these platforms. And even for those of you who may not necessarily, build partnership with us, we would encourage you to connect with us on these platforms, especially our Facebook page, so that you'll be able to get access to all the updates on information and program that we have. And so let me move on quickly to mentoring matters. So I shared a very brief part of my story. I believe I have a story to share, and that will kind of summarize the whole thing. So my name is George, as Angie mentioned initially. I grew up in Ghana. I grew up in a very humble home. I grew up as a young boy who loved to read, who loved to learn, who loved to be in school. That was kind of my soft area. When I finished my junior high school, so in the system in Ghana, I think it's still the same. At the junior high school level, you would write an exam that would help you qualify to the senior high school level before you move on to tertiary or whichever, way higher education that you have to get. When I finished my junior high school at a time, and I'm not going to tell you the year so that you can do your own calculations to see my age. But when I finished my junior high school, I got the best grade that every young person at the time would dream to have. In Ghana at the time, we had 10 courses to be, in the exam. If you were able to get one in each of these courses, it means it was the best grade you could ever had. And I thank God that I was able to make that grade to help me go to one of the best high schools in my country. Now, the problem I began to face was when I got to high school, I realized that life was different from junior high school. So this is senior high school level. At the senior high school level, you have the chance to choose a course which would, as it were, to a higher extent, determine your career in the future, determine who you're going to be, and determine the life that you make to a greater extent. My problem began from this point. I was not fortunate to be able to find somebody to really educate me well to select the right course. And so I picked a course that wasn't really in the area of my interest. At that time, I was a very young person. And so I went to high school. I did a course for about a month. I realized this wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I had to go find a way to get a course changed. The short of the story is that through all this problem, I began to get problems in high school. I began to struggle with my own confidence, with my own, skills that I had. Somebody who had gotten the grade I got in my junior high school, I could have been one of the best students in my senior high school. But because I lacked support to make the right choices, to pick the right courses, to be able to, pursue a life that was based on well-informed, position, I began to have a problem. And I have always said this, that I really struggled in my high school level because I made some choices that were not good, especially in my academic life. I thank God that when I finished school, I was able to, put my life together to go to university and then to move on. But I realized through this story I've told you that there are many people in Africa and across the continent who may share my story, with me. I would describe myself as a young person who had talent, who had grit, and had a dream, but then I lacked the support that I needed at a time to be able to, you know, choose the right courses and build my dream based on information. And that is why we feel that mentoring matters, especially for younger people in Africa. I came across this when I was doing a bit of research before, this program from the African Youth Mentorship Network. It is said that 3 in 5 African children grow up without supportive fathers. This doesn't mean that the fathers are not there, but then the support they need to be able to build their life and move on, they do not get it. 3 in 5. It says here in 2015, a 2015 report from the United Nations that 226 million youth between the ages of 15 and 24 in Africa. This is, a fact that the United Nations brought up in 2015. But the last point here is what was really, for me, was a big thing. By the year 2030, which is just 10 years from now, young Africans 35 years and below will make 42% of the world's youth. See, this makes us to know that to a higher extent, the future of the world is in the hands of the young Africans. 10 years from now, we're going to be making 42% of the world's youth. And the question I asked myself when I came across these facts was that how many of these people in this 42% category are receiving the support they need to be able to make the right right choices, to be able to take the right decisions to help them pursue a life that they really want to pursue. You probably might have seen these quotes before, said or read before, from Eleanor Roosevelt, who was one time First Lady of the United States. She said, great minds talk about ideas, average minds talk about events, and small minds talk about people. I love this quote because I believe from my experience talking with young people across the continent, from Ghana to Nigeria, to South Africa, to Kenya, to Botswana, to Malawi, all over the continent, and even beyond, I realized that young Africans these days are in the first category. They have the desire to talk about great ideas, because talking about people hasn't really changed things for them. We grew up talking about politicians and how they're not doing things to change our lives. We've done that for years. It hasn't changed anything. We've talked about events, the weddings and the parties and all that. It hasn't changed a lot. I have been talking to younger people who are looking for opportunities to talk about ideas, to bring about change in their own lives, change in their communities, change in their countries. Now, if that is true, then I have 3 questions here. I believe for you on this platform this morning, you have a dream, you have an idea, and there is gold in you that you want to bring out. So my question for you is this one is, who are you? What do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about ideas, events, or people? I believe you are here because you are a person who wants to talk about ideas. And if that is the case, who do you have to do that with? And I'm bringing this to the place of a mentor in your life. When you read about mentoring, you're going to find so many, different stories and definitions and all that. But I loved what I got from Connor Neal, who is an Irish communication expert and a university professor. Connor categorizes mentoring into 3 different areas, or the role of mentors in the life of everyone in 3 different areas. He says that the first group is what he would call the sponsor. And the sponsor, he says, are people who would put their reputation on the line and take responsibility for your success. I'm happy to share that even on this on this event right now, I have more than 2 of my mentors who have joined. One of them was a person who picked me under her wings when MeetMentors started 3 years ago. And she, even though she was based in the UK and I'm based in Canada right now, she gave me 1 full year of her sessions as an international speaker and leadership consultant. She was like, George, I'm going to give you my free time. Let me take you through this process. I didn't pay any dime for it. And that was how the organization was able to grow. I know Antoinette is here with us right now. I wish we were in a place that I could really, show her. But I see her as a person in that category. She put her reputation as an international consultant. She shared documents that were very useful to me and to the organization, so that she would see the success that I was dreaming to get. The second group is what Connor called the guide. They would ask you questions like, what is your next step? And then they will help you to trust in your own decisions. They will not make the decisions for you, but they will make sure that whatever decision you make, they are there to support you make it. And then the last group is what he calls the coach. And these are the people who would put a focus on your performance improvement. I am happy to say that in my life, I've had mentors like Antoinette, like Pastor Frank, who is also here, who have played these key roles in my life. They've been sponsors, they've been guides, they've been coaches, and they have helped me over the years to be able to see my dream go on. So the point is this: there is gold in you as you sit here this morning, wherever you've joined from. And one thing I've always said is that it is not enough to have gold in you. It is important to bring the gold out of you. Because until the gold comes out of you, it doesn't benefit the world. It doesn't benefit people. Laila Akida said, every great achiever is inspired by a great mentor. I know you have dreams for being here. Who is that mentor in your life that is going to help you achieve those ideas and dreams? J.L. Norris puts it in a very interesting way. He says, if you cannot see where you are going, ask someone who has been there before. And that, I believe, is the story for most of the young people that we have in Africa and across the world. There is a dream of a place to go, but sometimes you don't see the whole picture at a time. And I believe that at that point in your life, you would need somebody to hold your hand and help you to see. Ask them, people have been there before. There is nothing new under the sun, as it is said often. So why do you struggle if there are people who have been there? Isaac Newton, we all know popularly, he said that if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Whose shoulders are you standing on to get where you want to get to? I like how Dr. Samadayemi puts it. He said, mentoring delivers you from mistakes and ignorance. And in every sphere of career or whatever pursuit you have, there are likely mistakes that you can commit on the path for you to get there. Mentoring is one of the ways that you can escape all those mistakes. And in as much as I believe that, mistakes helps us to learn, it is important for us to understand that you can't keep on making mistakes because they can also derail you and sometimes kick you out of the path that you need to go. 3 questions. Maybe this has where your appetite to be thinking about mentoring. Some of you may have mentors, and for those who probably do not have, you just may be asking yourself, how do I get a mentor? I believe it starts by a self-assessment place. Who are you? What are your talents? What are your goals? What are your dreams? Where do you want to get to? Ask yourself, where are you right now? What do you have right now? The next question is, where am I? At this point in your life, where are you? In relation to who you are, you know your talent. Where are you in the pursuit of that talent? Where are you? That is a question you need to ask yourself. And then the last one is, where am I going? Have you been able to define where you're going? And to be able to define where you go, you're not going to get the right person to be with you there. Bill Walsh said, find a great mentor who believes in you, your life will change forever. And I want to throw that challenge to you this morning, that if you have not found that person in your life, you've got to understand that mentoring matters in your life. And so you would need that to be able to get to where you want to get to. Find a great mentor, somebody who believes in you. Some of my mentors call me sometimes and they push me, George, you've got to do this. And as they push me, it pushes me to go on. You need that person in your life. As I bring my presentation to an end, this is a question I want to pose to you right now. You have a dream, you have a vision, you want to get to where your life and be the person that you dream to be. Where have you placed mentoring in the pursuit of your vision and purpose? Are you just hoping to chance on success? It doesn't happen. Dreams will not necessarily come to fruition because you have them within you. There must be a process to get there. And in the process of getting there, we at MeetMentors believe that mentoring is an important part of what you need to get to be able to place you there. As I've said, we believe that there is gold in you, and we know that that gold in you can really be brought out if you have a mentor. We all, most of us are from Africa, and we know that in most African countries, you've got gold. The gold is in the soil. It doesn't benefit the people until it comes out. It doesn't. And that is what it is for us as people as well. Until the potential is brought out, it doesn't benefit you and other people. And mentors help you to get there. Your vision is situated within your purpose. Understand it that way. Your purpose is situated within your time. Mentoring helps you to maximize your time. And that is why we believe that at MeetMentors, every dream, every vision, every aspiration needs a mentor to be able to help you get there. And so I want to say thank you very much for joining us this morning. And I believe that as the speakers come and as the others, present on the other issues, you would be thinking about the question, where have you placed mentoring in the pursuit of your purpose? Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was on mute for a second. So yes, I was saying I cannot even begin to describe just listening to George right now, right? Every single time there's wisdom in what he says, and there's always something that you learn from him. So thank you so much, Josh. This has been, as always, inspiring and enlightening. We're gonna take our first survey, so I'm going to put the link in our chat so you can just click on that um, right here. So the link should be in our chat right now. You can click on that and just take a few seconds. I'm going to go back here. Take a few seconds to take the survey for us. And then we'll prepare and go into the second section as well. This should take a few minutes. And whilst we get our second session ready to go, yeah, there's a lot of inspiration in the chat for you, George. Thank you. Please let me know if you've taken the survey, if you're done with it, and we can swing into our second speaker session. Okay, great. I see some of us are getting done with that, so we'll prepare. Thank you. Awesome job, guys. Okay, so I'm going to let the speaker for the next session do his introduction, tell us a little bit briefly about himself. This section is a little bit different from the one that we had. This is more of a Q&A or an interview form, if you like. So I'll ask him a set of questions, and he will give us the answers to those questions. So Dr. Dominic, if you're ready, please start us off by introducing yourself to us.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Angie. I hope you can all hear me clearly.
Yes.
Yes, okay, that's good. So, where do I start? Well, my name is Dominic, Dominic Ajay. I am from Ghana, the eastern region part of Ghana. Um, well, I'm a father of two children, and currently I lecture in food science at the University of Otago in Dunedin, New Zealand. I often like to say I've spent the past 15 years of my life studying and researching about food, and the past 33 years eating it. So I really love food. I think across my education, so I went to high school in a town, that's at Kimodan, and I went to KNUST, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, in Kumasi in Ghana. And from there, I was fortunate to get a PhD scholarship to study in Australia. So this is Monash University, where I did chemical engineering. And followed on there, I did a bit of postdoctoral research for almost 2 years in Deakin University, also in Victoria in Australia. And from Deakin, I moved to Monash, and that's why I am. No, I moved to Otago, sorry, Otago University. That's where I am currently. Now, I will be bringing up some of my experiences across, especially during my education in the talk. I'm sure there will be something that will be of help and benefit to someone. Yeah,
Definitely.
thank you, Angie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. Okay, so let's get into the questions. So our topic for discussion today is setting academic and career goals. An
Mm.
amazing and expansive topic, right? But why do you think it's important to set academic and career goals, especially based off of what George talked about in the beginning, the African setting? Why is it important for the African youth for us to set academic and career goals?
Yeah, now that's a really important question. The why behind certain goals.
Right.
Now, there's something about a dream. So a dream is it's a dream, something you wish would happen, something which is an aspiration. But as George mentioned, it will actually stay a dream until you do something about it. So suppose you want to go somewhere, anywhere really, and now most of us probably will use Google Map. Okay, the dream is to be there. So until you actually pick the phone, put in the address, the map will tell you, oh, this will be the direction that will be the most quickest or most effective way to go to get there. Until you do that little exercise, you will not find yourself where you want to be. So I think that is when um, that's where setting goals actually comes in. So that's where you see the dream or see the vision, and you put in plans and processes in place to be able to get you there. So it's a really, really important thing. Another perspective I will add is there's a sense in which humans are the only species who have the ability to actually set dreams or make goals, because we have our brains are able to process things, experiences from the past, together with how things happen normally or naturally around our environment, and be able to even make some predictions of what might happen or what could happen in the future. So I see it as a privilege for humans, and the fact that we're able to set dreams and goals as well, as a pathway of getting to achieve the dream. And with those of us who I would say come from Africa, especially the young people, as George mentioned, we often don't have I like to put it as official or very good support system in the context of mentoring. Okay, like you mentioned, we may have parents at home and so on, but to really have a mentor, often, yeah, it's really good that we have this discussion coming up. Okay, so you'll be able to get some ideas on how some of these processes, again, how the some steps that can be taken to actually set those goals, which can lead us to the dream that we hope to achieve. So I really see goal setting as really, really important.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. So in essentiality, it's about helping you achieve your goals, which will set you for life. So like George mentioned, it's a connection between your purpose, what you want to achieve, and how you're going to do that.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
so what are some of the key issues to consider when you're setting those both academic and career goals? What should we be looking at?
Um, I'll actually mention three things. The first one is to have the big picture. Okay, so big picture could be like a very long-term goal. Where do I see myself in 10 years? And George put a very good challenge to all of us, how the world's population is going to be 40% or more of young people coming from Africa. So and within that 10 years, all of us, or most of us will be around. Okay, so what role will I be playing in that? That would be a very good question. So that's a broad, big picture perspective of where do I see myself in 10 years, or what do I want to do with my life? What impact do I want to make? Where are my passions, and who do I want to touch? I had a little phrase yesterday when I was listening to a talk, and they said, how do I want to dent dent the universe or something?
We have
Essentially saying, what impact do I want to make? So I think that's the first thing to consider, the broad, big picture. Now, once you know that broad picture of what you want to do, you will then have to break it down into a little bit chunks, which are more workable. If you want to, let's say, be doing a business in real estate, for example, of course, you have to start somewhere. Okay. You don't, it doesn't, as we all know, it doesn't happen automatically. So that broad picture has to then be broken down into smaller chunks, which are workable within a specific time frames. Now, after those have been elaborated, or often it's a good idea to actually write them down. After those have been written down, then you can set very specific goals to achieve those smaller chunks, which together can make up the big picture. Okay. I'm sure most of us or all of us are aware of the SMART goals they talk about. SMART goals. I mean, if I can quickly run through them, I'm sure it will be very helpful. Yes. Okay. So I found a variant of that. Actually, someone described them as in, rather than have them SMART goals, he prefers to have smarter goals. So SMARTER. Okay. And you will know that the S stands for the goal must be specific. So essentially, the goal has to be specific enough so that when some progress is made, you will be able to track it. One very good goal could be, let's say I'm putting this in the context of a student. If you have a goal, say, to become better in mathematics, is that specific enough? So how better relative to what? Okay. But if you say to score at least 80% in my mathematics paper this semester, that is really specific because you have given yourself a mark and you make sure you attain that. So essentially, you don't want the goal to be vague. Okay, so that's the S, specific. The M stands for, it has to be measurable. Again, it leads on from when it's really specific, then you can measure the outcome easily. So if you say to study more, my goal is to study more this semester. Again, that's a little bit vague. How much is more, or how more? What do you mean by to study more? But if you put it as to study X hours every day for this semester, that is really time bound. You can actually pick your phone, set an alarm, and say, I'm going to study for the next 1 hour or 2 hours, or whatever time you set yourself. So you are really able to measure what is happening. Now, in this context, sometimes it's more better to set performance rather than outcome goals. Now, what I mean by that is you set the goal as something you would do rather than the outcome that will happen as a result of your action, because there are times when the outcome is not so much in our control. Okay, you may decide to say, I want to score 80% in math this semester, and to do that, I will study 2 hours every day on mathematics. You put in the effort to make sure you are, diligent in doing your 2 hours every day. You ask questions, talk to the lecturer, talk to friends, make sure you understand everything. You write the exam, and often your chances of success is higher. Okay, but sometimes it may happen for whatever reason. COVID may come in or whatever. Something will happen, and the outcome may not be as what you expect. But then if your goal was a performance-based, it actually changes you. You have developed a new skill, a new attitude, a new determination, which becomes a part of your personality. Okay, so I think sometimes let's have those two in mind rather than maybe setting outcome goals. In some areas, it may be more important to focus more on the performance, as in what you have to do, and often the outcome will come on its own. Okay, then the A is, remember we're going through smarter, SMA. So we're at A is the goal has to be attainable. So that is something that is reachable, really. It's good to dream big, but sometimes a goal may be so big that it can begin to scare you. So based on the time you have, the resources you have, the facilities and so on, you set the goals to match that. It may even be good to set little goals so which you are able to achieve, which are motivating. So once you're motivated by the fact that you've been able to take something off, it helps you set other ones rather than set a very big goal, which can you may not be able to achieve within the resources and constraints that you have. For example, you can say, I want to read one book on maybe personal development this Christmas holiday. That is achievable. But I started by saying, no, I'm a father of two children, okay? And I'm also a lecturer, typically 9 to 5 and beyond, you're always on call as a lecturer and so on. So if I give myself a goal to work out at the gym 4 hours a day, of course, that will be not attainable as much as I may want to. Okay, so that's what I mean by the goal has to be attainable. It has to be something which is within my reach. And the fourth one is the goal has to be relevant. As in the fact that achieving it is actually important for me. Okay, not so much as we have to be careful that the goal we have is not something that other people want for us or something that other people have rather recommended. Now there's a place for mentoring, and as George mentioned, you decide where you want to go and mentors help you get there, not so much as tell you what to do or what needs to be done. So the goal has to be relevant to achieving your big picture goal. Then it needs to be time bound. Again, you have to give yourself some time so you'll be able to um, take action, because if there's no timeline, if there's no end, if it's not time bound, often we allow it to drag on almost indefinitely. Okay, so but if you give yourself a time that I need to achieve this thing by this time, you make sure you put in measures in place to be able to get it done until that time. Now the last two, which is the ER, which was actually the first time I found it. The first E is actually the goals have to be evaluated periodically. Now we are fortunate to have computers and smartphones, and you can easily slot it in the calendar. The first Friday of every month is give myself 1 hour to review all the goals I have. Just get the document out, review how things are progressing and so on. So that E is to evaluate, and then the R is reward yourself, which is also really important, especially when you're able to take off some goals done. Buy something, hang it on the wall. So whenever you see it, remember, oh, that is what I got for achieving the other particular goal. The example I mentioned is a good one. Let's say your goal was to score 80% in mathematics this semester, and you put in your best and you got 85. Do something, print a certificate. It will just be a piece of paper hanging on the wall to really motivate you, because once you see it, I was able to do this, and it helps you even set other goals and also work on them. So that's smarter goals. So I started by saying you need a big picture, and once you have the big picture, you cut it up into smaller chunks which are more workable. And once you have these smaller chunks, you set smarter goals to be able to achieve them.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, that's a lot to learn from that, especially the part about rewarding yourself is
Yeah.
important. It's how you stay
It
ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it often gets missed out, but it's very important.
Yes. Even if it's just going out for ice cream or going out to or taking a nap, it's a reward
Yeah,
and it helps
yeah.
motivate you to do more. So I got myself a gift for making it through the semester. So that's my reward. Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about specifically about setting the goals. Are there any stages that you have to go through when you're setting academic and career goals, or is it something that happens at a point, a one-time thing?
I wouldn't say it's something you do
Okay.
once and for all. Yeah, because life keeps changing. So we all go through different stages in life, and therefore each stage of your life may require different set of goals
Okay.
or even priorities. Yeah. Maybe one thing I'll add is, especially for students. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if you find yourself anywhere you are filling a form and they have name, date of birth, and so on, and there's occupation, we often write student, right? Now that means that's your job description, okay? If you're a student, just study, just do it. Because that's the stage in life where you are at. Now I'm a lecturer. My job is to teach, do research, and also to do service. Okay, so that's what I have to be thinking about. That is what I'll be assessed on. Okay, and as a student, exactly, it's the same. This is my personal opinion, and I think there are many people on the platform and may give other perspectives and so on. But I feel, let's say for a 4-year undergraduate degree, probably it's a good idea to spend the first 2 years really focusing on your studies rather than get involved too much in so many different things. Because I feel if you focus more on your studies, let's say the first and second year,
Mhm.
the chances of getting good grades are higher. And that is motivating. Okay. That also helps you build a good foundation for the third and fourth year, when often the concepts and ideas in the different papers become a little bit hard. And of course, it's important. Education is not just about passing your exam and so on. Okay, you need to make friends. You need to get some extra curricular activities going. You may need to join certain groups, do some volunteering. All these things are important. But I feel maybe in first and second year, focus on your studies because, well, that's what you came there to do. And I think once you have, it's able to boost your confidence. Once you have very good grades, you get a good foundation for the entire program you are going to study. Then pick up whatever you want to pick up in third and fourth year. In a sense, by then your grade or GPA, we used to say in KNUS that the CWA, that's cumulative weighted average, has now buffered. A buffer solution. It doesn't matter how much acid or base you add to it, it stays the same. So by
Every-
then the GPA will be buffered. So the performance, academic performance, it may still be able to go up and so on, and you still have to do your best, of course. But that's my opinion. I think, and therefore that means
Mhm.
initially the goals really has to be focus on my studies and so on, do well, understand the concept, build a good foundation for the program. And as I mentioned, third and fourth year, you can add a few more other things um, to it. Yeah, so that's what I would say. So yeah, bottom line is it's not something you do once and for all, but
It's
at
changing.
different stages you may require different goals or different emphasis or yeah, yeah.
Perfect. There's a few questions here, but I'm gonna keep those till we get to the Q&A session, and then we'll go
Okay.
a little bit details into those questions. So following through it, following up with what you just said, what are some of the challenges that we encounter, whether you're a upcoming student or you're even in your third year and you're now looking for a mentor? What are some of the challenges that we encounter when we're setting some of these goals? And how can we receive help? So, how can we get some help in addressing those challenges?
I'll answer the second one and I'll go to the first one. How
Okay.
do we receive help? Now, this platform is a good one. Okay. Especially if you are here and you've joined us and you are going through all these different talks. Of
Mhm.
course, as was mentioned, there will be email, there will be Facebook, and you'll be able to contact MeetMentors. That's a good place to get some help. Okay, so that's bottom line. Now I'll go to the other one where you talk about challenges that most people encounter when setting goals. Um, Probably the first one will be the challenge that people may not know how to do it or what to do, or if even they do it at all. Um, like I mentioned, maybe the goal is so vague that you don't even know when you achieve it, whether you've achieved it or not, and when you do, you may not even know it. Okay, so there's the how to do it aspect. Okay, and but maybe bringing it more into the context in for like African youth,
Yeah.
there could be. I think there's a lot of distractions that we face as young people. Distractions in the context of maybe things that take away our time
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of expectations placed on us. Sometimes it could be families expectation, community or cultural expectations, even religious expectations. And all these things can um, keep us away from actually pursuing what we need to pursue in order to be able to achieve the dream we have. An example comes to my mind now, and I'm trying to think if it's appropriate, but I think I'll still mention it. So Now, I know someone who is a doctor actually. So once when she finished her studies and was placed in, no, when she finished her studies, was waiting for placement to be put in a hospital.
Mm.
There was um, a time gap. So when they had to wait for the Ministry of not Education, Ministry of Health or Ghana Health Service, one of them, to actually do the postages. But she realized this is the expectation I'm talking about. She realized that when she visited, her area, her home, most of the people around, because they know she's a doctor, will often ask the question, "Oh, doc, so when is your when is your car coming?" when Essentially, now if you're not a Ghanaian, you may not understand the joke, but the Ghanaians are, I think, nodding their head, and there's an expectation that you have this career, which in our context is ranked up here, and therefore you need this type of car to go along with it. So whether you have the means or not, whether you think you are ready for a car or not, whether you probably feel you want to do a bit more exercise, so and your clinic is just around the corner, you don't need it or not. Society can actually set this expectation. I feel there's a lot of that, especially in Ghana and probably mostly in Africa, compared to other parts of the world, from my little experience in comparing Ghana to, let's say, Australia and New Zealand. So those are really big challenges that us Africans have to really work through. You have to really set your mind, this is what I want, and make sure you don't have people swaying you either to the left or to the right. Now that leads on to, you have to also have to be careful that you are not living other people's dream for them. Your parents wanted to become doctors, they couldn't, and they make sure they put you in the school and push you and to go and study medicine, and you may feel, this thing, I don't really, it's not my thing, You have to really be careful. As much as we need to be respectful and obedient to our parents and all that, sometimes it's also really important that you let them know where your own passion lies. Because probably in 50, 60 years, they will leave you behind and you'll be left alone with whatever they've made you do. Okay. So I think that's another challenge that we have to navigate. Probably another one is well, I should be careful, but some young people nowadays often want shortcuts, shortcuts to success. It doesn't happen. Now, some of you can take some time and maybe talk to George again and ask him, when did he first have the idea of MeetMentors? You realize it's not something that's happened, few days ago or few years ago. It's something which will probably go way back. And probably as a teenager, something happened and somehow it begins to mold the dream and vision in you. So if you see him now, he gives a talk, it's very inspiring, and you say, "Oh, that's so good. I'm going to be like George." Okay, that's good. But remember, it's a process. It takes really long. There are no shortcuts. There are no overnight success. I feel if someone wants to talk about overnight success, you have to be a bit careful about listening to such a person, because um, there's no shortcut with some of these things. Then there's also challenges with setting goals are, like, I would like to call them prestige goals. For example, if you say to be the best mathematics students in my class, well, it's good. But suppose the way that, if you put it that way, to be the best mathematics students in my class, and let's say that year the exam was so hard that the top student got 40, you are still the best student in the class, but you got 40, 40%. But if you always have to measure yourself relative to yourself, like to be better than I am yesterday, better than I was yesterday. So it's better you to be more relative to yourself rather than compare yourself to someone on either side of you. So I think that's also a challenge that we have to navigate. The last one I'll talk about is fear. It could be fear of failure. What if I fail and therefore people don't set goals? Or fear of judgment. What if this happens and what will people say? What will my family say or my friends say? What will my pastor say, and so on? All these things we have to navigate. And probably there's also a fear of success, which I find interesting, because sometimes we know that success motivates us and so on, but there's a sense when sometimes success also um, makes us contain or limit to some degree how much we could have achieved. It's a bit like, oh, this maybe I will not really try and target that particular level, but this is good enough. It's fine within my context, within my environment. It's still fine anyway, and that's something we have to guard against. I found a quote which I really like, and maybe I'll read it. And you don't have to write it down or anything because I'll make some notes available after the program. But because it's slightly longer one, but just hear me out, okay? It's really important. This is a quote from Marianne Williamson. I think in a book she wrote, A Return to Love. And she says, our deepest fear, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I really like it. I really like it because I think it's really on point how sometimes we can contain certain things we have just because we feel, oh, who am I? But why not? No,
Yeah.
why not?
That sums it up really nicely. And that is one of my favorite quotes as well. The fear,
Yeah,
like, who are you to play small when the world
yeah,
expects you to be this big, right? The world expects you
yeah.
to do so much. So who are you to play small, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. So what bringing us into my next question is about, I think you've mentioned this a little bit in some of the answers that you've given throughout, but I wanted to
Mhm.
concentrate on what role that mentoring organizations, especially Meet Mentor and why we're here today, how those organizations play into the whole concept of mentoring and supporting specifically the youth in Africa that we're gathered here today. So what role do you think we play in all of that?
Yeah, so this I think in George's talk, he really
Mhm.
um, elaborated and made it really clear that mentors are there. I like what he said about, we learn from our mistakes, which is true. But a mentor will also keep you from making a mistake that probably they did. Okay, because this phrase, don't reinvent the wheel.
Mhm.
If it's already there, why not learn about it and use it? Okay, so I think organizations like Meet Mentors it's really important to help us know, in this context of what I'm talking about, how do I set the goals? What resources do I need? What resources may I need? What inspiration may I need? And so on. And as a mentor works with you for a while, they will begin to see certain traits.
Yes.
Probably they'll begin to sense that maybe you need to spend a bit more time on your time management, or you may need to spend a bit more time on how many things you try to juggle at once. And all these things, because we've been through, well, I'll say a number of experiences, often we'll be able to point you in the right direction and help you navigate some of these issues. So I think, yeah, um, organizations like MeetMentors really play a critical and huge role. And again, the fact that we don't, I would say I also had mentors in a sense, as George talked about,
Mhm.
but it was not. I wouldn't say they call themselves my mentors, except that I personally, when I have an issue or I have something to do, I think of someone and
Mhm.
I talk to them. So to me, they are my mentors. To them, they may feel, oh, Dominic just asked me a question and I give him an answer, and
Mhm.
so on. But having it in a more organized setting, you know, is, I think, the way to go. So
Yes,
both of us are in agreement, and we set some clear directions on what each want to achieve, and so on.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think in an organized setting, it's easier for you to be able to see the trajectory of where you're going, so you can
Yeah.
gauge your outcome and you can make concrete plans. So, George mentioned some your mentors also keep you in check, I think,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you know that you're staying on the path, and even if
Yeah.
you go off of it, they are there to help you come back onto the path.
Come back to it. Yeah.
Thank you. So we're gonna end with my last question. And this goes back to some of the things you've mentioned. You just mentioned you have mentors, right? Or you've had mentors. So can you briefly share with us your story about how you set your own career and academic goals, and maybe something about your experience with your own mentors?
Okay. To some degree, I think, like George, I I grew up in a humble home,
Yeah.
and I also really love school. I remember two incidences, probably when I was in grade two or grade one. I think grade one. I remember it was grade one. My school was not too far from this Methodist school, the public school was not too far from my hometown. So, no, not too far from my home, actually. So one day I went to school and I wasn't feeling fine, and teacher asked me to come home, and but mom was not home. Mommy had gone to the farm. So I got home, but there was someone in the house, gave me some paracetamol. I had a bit of rest and I was feeling better. And I felt, I'm feeling better. What am I doing home? I just went back to school. It happened, I think, two times. And my teacher actually spoke to my mom and said, next time when he's sick, make sure he stays at home or something. Because I really just love to be in school rather than spend the day at home. It's boring at home. It's more fun in school. But along the line, I also realized, again, because, yeah, my family was, um, we're not rich. That's a relative term, I know.
Yeah.
But I realized, if I'm really I'm going to achieve these goals of really studying, loving books, and so on, it will have to be through scholarship. There's no other way. There's, yeah, there's no other way. And if it will have to be through scholarship, then I really have to study,
Mhm.
because in Ghana, much of, well, I think at that time, most scholarships were all going for, there's a brilliant student and so on, needy but brilliant student, and those were the phrases. But so I realized, yeah, I really had to study. Now probably that was when I began to set goals, even though it wasn't official. Like, I didn't write anything on paper or have someone look over it for me. But in my mind, as a young person, around high school, going to the junior high school, going to the senior high school, it was something deep inside my mental framework. My goal is really make sure I study, so I get very good grades, making it easy for me to get scholarship to be able to progress my studies along. That's the high school level. And to university. Oh, at university, that's when probably I got a mentor. So this was um, a man who actually sponsored me at the university. He's Mr. Mensa Banahene. Some of you may know him probably. He was the administrator for Get Fund when it was started
Oh,
initially. You know the Get Fund,
yeah.
Ghana Education Trust Fund. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Now, there is your clue, because I wrote to them for a scholarship to go and study at the university. When I finished, got my grades together, it was probably the first time I went to Accra from my hometown.
Mhm.
I was really determined. Yeah,
Yeah.
printed everything, did a photocopy. This is my letter, application letter. This is my BEC certificate. Put everything together, and went to Accra. Got in the bus, went to Accra early. Wake up very early in the morning, because the bus that leads my hometown to Accra goes around 4 a.m. once every day.
Once a day.
And I remember Rage. Their first office was around Rage. ask around and so on. Finally got there, talked to him. At that time, there was no scheme under which they could sponsor an individual. I think there was some government restrictions around that. But somehow he sponsored me, personally, by the way, which I really thank God for. And since then, he became my mentor. So, like every semester, I'll call him and he ask me how my studies going, encourage me, and so on, which was really good. To date, I still keep in touch with him. In fact, my son is named after him because I really appreciate what he did for me. Yeah, yeah.
That's inspiring.
so,
Yeah.
so yeah, so mentors have really played a huge role in my mind. As I mentioned, I think it's at the university level that I probably to me it was more in an official setting where I had somebody I actually called my mentor. Um, then to PhD in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
I think there too, my supervisor was my mentor, because he's Ghanaian at that time. He was also in Monash University, and it was good to have him there. And he was very determined, as in he's very productive and so on. So I learned a little bit from him, especially with regards to publishing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important. It's really
Yes.
important. So yeah, it was to date, whenever I have an issue, maybe I'm writing a grant or an idea and so on, I can flick him a little bit, scoop or synopsis, and he gives me feedback on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the bottom line is, George spoke, I'm speaking now. I mean, Angie, Lena, Solomon, and so on, all of us to be able to tell you that even to date, we still ask people for, feedback and input, and we have mentors. Even though we may be mentors to some of you, we too have mentors. There's not something that ends, and it really plays a huge role in life. Yeah.
And I think this answers one of the questions in our chat. It's about having different mentors for different parts of your career, different parts of your life,
Exactly.
basically. Yeah, you can have
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
mentors that
Exactly.
serve different purpose.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an amazing and deeply, deeply inspiring talk. Thank you, Dominic.
That's
Dr. J. Thank you for sharing your story with us and for being here with us today. So, like we did in the beginning with our first session, I'm also going to post the link to our second survey. Is same format as the first one, really short, and will only take a few minutes whilst we prepare to go into our third and last session before our question and answer. So I'm going to have that up in our chat session, and then we'll prepare and have Lena join us for our session on scholarships. So once you're done, please let me know in the chats. You can just send done, and then we can go into our next section. That was amazing. Yes, thank you, Dominic. Okay, whilst we're taking that, we're gonna go into our next section with Miss Lena, who would be talking on scholarships. This, I know some of you are looking or waiting for specifically the scholarship part, right? A lot of us are looking at, okay, there's mentoring. Where do I get the money? Where do I get the funding? How do I make this happen? So Lena is going to take us through that process and talk about MeetMentors and academics as well. So I'm gonna all the way to you, Lena.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. And also thank you for having me tonight. I'm really, really excited to be a part of this. And I really enjoyed the two previous sessions. I mean, every time, I hear about these topics, I get so inspired. And I mean, as George said, mentoring, it's such a key part of someone's career journey. And also Dominic talking about the importance of goal setting and pursuing those goals with the help of mentors. But as you just said, Angela, there's often this big thing standing between us and our goals. And more often than not, that is money or the lack of money and funding. So yeah, this is what my presentation tonight will focus on. Just sharing my screen quickly. So yeah, maybe just a few words about my presentation today. So I'll just say a few words about Africademics and then dive into different options for scholarships. And I'll also chat a little bit about studying abroad because obviously many scholarships are to study abroad, as we've heard with George and with Dominic being examples of that. And then I'll round it off with some useful tips and advice, both in terms of studying abroad and scholarships. And then I think we'll head into the question and discussion section. So yeah, just briefly about Africademics. What is Africademics? It's a scholarship platform and community open to students, early career researchers, and young professionals in and from Africa. And just maybe a few words about the story behind it. So I had the idea of founding Africademics when I was looking for funding for my PhD studies. So I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Cape Town. And I started last year. And, you know, as anyone else, I was looking for funding. Now, me being German and studying in South Africa made it a little tricky. So I spent a lot of time looking for funding, looking for opportunities. It was difficult to find something for myself because me being German kind of disqualified me from a lot of opportunities. But what I did realize was that there are so many scholarship programs, different kinds for different nationalities, different types of education that exist for young people from African countries. But the problem is that many of them are not really widely known. So they exist, they are out there, but people simply don't know about them or they don't know where to look for them. And that just kept playing at the back of my mind. And when I finally got my funding to pursue my PhD, I decided that I wanted to do something about this and just connect, you know, young people and the opportunities that already exist. So I founded Africademics in 2019, so last year. And it really started as a relatively small Facebook page. I just kind of started, you know, looking for opportunities, sharing them, but it's really taken off since then. And we've grown into a multi-channel platform. We have thousands of followers from all corners of Africa. And it's been a really, really exciting journey to just see the impact that, you know, getting access to opportunities, getting information about opportunities can have on young people. So what do we do? The one key thing obviously is focusing on scholarships. So identifying opportunities, sharing existing scholarships with young people. We're running a website with a blog. We're also sharing stories of people who managed to get scholarships because I think it's really important to have that inspiration as well. Then we also present on different campuses across Africa. So we have an ambassador program with volunteer ambassadors from different universities. We'll be expanding that next year. And then obviously we have a very strong online presence, social media, WhatsApp, and so on. And we have started to offer personal advice and support specifically in terms of scholarship applicants. So it's not mentoring like George and MeetMentors are doing, but very practical information and support for scholarship applicants. And then last but not least, and that's obviously where MeetMentors comes in, we also strive to establish more and more partnerships with universities, funders, and other organizations like MeetMentors that work in the youth development space and just aim to create more opportunities. So we've partnered a few months ago, and yeah, the opportunity or the aim of this partnership is really to promote both mentoring and scholarship opportunities and funding for young people. And yeah, this is one of our first projects together, the MentorHackathon, but we'll also be launching a Africademics webinar series, and we're hoping to see MeetMentors participate there. And I'm sure there will be many other exciting projects happening in the future. So yeah, that's just a few words about who we are and what the connection is with MeetMentors. So let me jump straight into the exciting stuff, which I'm sure you've all been waiting for. So as I said, I'll talk both about studying abroad and obviously scholarship options or opportunities. But before I start, I think it's really important to also look a little bit at the different types of options that are out there. I often get questions or inquiries or emails from students who say, I want to study for a master's degree. Is there a scholarship for me? And the first thing I always tell them, there is no such thing as a scholarship. There are specific scholarships for specific things, for specific people, for specific subjects, for specific universities. So it's very important to be clear about what is out there, what types of scholarships exist, what types of scholarships could you as an individual qualify for. So just very, very broadly speaking, obviously there are those full degree scholarships. And I think when we talk about scholarships, that's often what we think about, that they will fund you for your undergrad, your postgrad, or maybe your PhD. And obviously those are kind of the prime scholarships, right? Those are the ones that we really want. But again, those exist, they are out there, many of them are out there, but there is not always the perfect scholarship opportunity for you. Not each and every one of us will get a scholarship, but even if you don't get a full degree scholarship, there are many other options out there that you can look into. So just because you don't get a full master's scholarship doesn't mean that you cannot find funding for your career plans, right? So just for example, in terms of you getting experience abroad, maybe studying abroad, there are certain programs that allow you to study abroad for a semester, for example, as part of your studies or in between. There are short courses, there are summer schools, for example, which is something that you can do while you're studying at home. Many of those have a few fully funded spots. So those are really exciting opportunities for you, even if you don't get a full scholarship to study, right? And then obviously kind of the further up you move on the academic ladder, if you decide to go into research or if you decide to pursue a PhD, there are lots of research scholarships, fellowships, postdoc positions, and there are also competitions and conferences. And those are often a bit underestimated. But even if you're a master's student, you can apply for conference funding in some cases. When I was a master's student, I was doing a master's by research. So I had just finished my thesis and I saw this really exciting conference. It was in my field and it had a scholarship program for young scholars. So, you know, I applied. I didn't really put too much hope into it, but I got it. And I was invited for a fully funded trip to New York to a 3-day conference where I was invited to present my research. And the following year, I got another one to travel to Germany and present my research there. And that was me literally just having finished my master's, not even being a PhD student. So it's possible. And I think sometimes we just have this thing in our head that we think, oh no, but I'm not advanced enough. I'm not going to get it. No, you can, and you can apply for it. So look at those different types of scholarship options, very important, rather than just focusing on the big full degree ones. Now, looking at undergraduate studies, I'm not sure where all of you are in your academic journey, but obviously your undergraduate studies is really what kind of sets you up, right, for your future studies, for your professional career. So that is really the foundation. You can study abroad for your undergrad. There are a few options for that. And obviously, if you do manage to do that, that has the added advantage of giving you access to a new culture, you can learn a new language, and you can start building your international network. However, there's always the downside of things. Obviously, studying abroad, especially at undergraduate level, it's quite a big commitment and it's a big challenge, especially at a relatively young age. And just in terms of the funding opportunities, so if we look at undergraduate funding abroad, there isn't that much available at undergraduate level. Most undergraduate scholarships are available locally through national governments, through universities, or through local companies, for example. So my recommendation is always for undergraduate studies to first look in your immediate surroundings and in your own country and maybe opt for additional funding, for example, for others. However, there are undergraduate programs that allow you to study both abroad and in your home country. A very big one, MasterCard Foundation, they do have scholarships for undergraduates and postgrads. Margaret McNamara Education Grants, those are specifically for women. Those two are also undergraduate programs that allow you to, for example, study in the UK. They're specifically for students from sub-Saharan African countries. Wells Mountain for the United States, Ashinaga Initiative is for orphaned youth from sub-Saharan Africa. So those programs are out there. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Feel free to check out our website or reach out to us for scholarships, but I just think it's important to, mention a few of those. Now, if we look at the postgraduate study options, the funding landscape does get bigger and bigger the further up you go. So as I said, there generally are more funding available, funding opportunities available, both in African countries and abroad. And also just looking at the master's programs themselves. At master's level, there are more English taught programs available abroad than at undergrad level, which obviously makes it a lot easier for you to go abroad and study without having to learn, for example, Swedish or Danish, right? And one of the nice-ish outcomes of COVID is also a really huge increase in online degrees. So more and more universities are moving into the online space and are either offering kind of blended programs or entirely online degrees. And some of those also do offer scholarships. Not too many yet, but they are coming. So I think this is also a space that we definitely need to watch because it does allow you to get an online degree from a prestigious university at a much lower cost. Now, the downside is obviously master's programs tend to be smaller than undergrad programs, so spaces are limited and they're quite competitive. And there is the application process, which does require quite a bit of getting documents together, checking requirements, being on time with your deadlines, but I'll chat about that a little bit later. And once again, doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means that you have to put in the work, because as I think Dominic said it earlier, it's not just gonna happen. You have to put in the work. And yeah, just a few examples of postgraduate programs or places where you can find information about that. Germany actually offers a very, very large number of scholarships. The German Academic Exchange Service has a huge database that you can search for opportunities in the master's space, but also other programs, undergraduate, PhD. Study in Holland is quite similar. Obviously for the Netherlands, different universities, many scholarship programs, also specifically for young people from African countries. And then, yeah, once again, MasterCard Scholars Program, they do have a postgraduate program and they work with both African and international universities. Rotary program, that one runs through local Rotary clubs. So if you have a Rotary club in your area, you can actually reach out to them and inquire. And they do offer fully funded postgraduate scholarships to a university of your choice. So we recently published a story about a young lady who studied at Oxford through one of those scholarships. So really, really good program. And yeah, just two more, Pan-African University launched a program earlier this year. And then there are also other prestigious ones like the Rhodes Scholarship, where they offer a number of slots basically to each country every year. One level further up, I'll make this brief because most of you are probably at undergrad and master's level, but I do think it's important to mention that. So once you get past your master's and you're at PhD or postdoc level, it gets a lot easier in terms of funding because the majority of positions, both in Europe, United States, and partly Africa, are actually fully funded. So you do get a salary with many of those programs. There is a difference in terms of countries. So in some countries, you will have a very structured PhD program with classes and seminars that you have to attend. In other countries, it's very individual and you just pursue your own research and just basically have to find a supervisor and carry out the work. So again, and here you often get funding through your university or through your department. So in terms of scholarships, that's usually your first point of call before you look for international programs. But again, the funding is there. And yeah, just a quick kind of tips in terms of PhD studies. It's always best before you even apply, identify a supervisor in your desired department at your desired university, reach out to them and also check for funding opportunities there. Different options, many people who can't get funding then pursue the PhD part-time, which is obviously an option, but be aware of that long-term commitment. I'm currently going through this process. It's time-consuming, but it's also very rewarding and obviously opens a lot of doors once you've gone through it. Okay, now to the short-term opportunities, which I always find very exciting. So as I said earlier on, there's quite a large variety of these opportunities. And if you cannot get a scholarship for a full degree, you may still be eligible for those short-term opportunities. Now, examples are, for example, summer schools and leadership programs. You can do that during a semester break or after finishing university or even before. And if you're planning to go more into the research space, maybe you're working on your thesis, those research and travel grants can really not only boost your career, but give you the opportunity, carry out research abroad, attend conferences, network, which is so important. So it's really worth looking into those as well. Yeah, as I said, conference funding, really great opportunity. And there are also fellowships and young professional programs for graduates, for example. And just a few examples in this space, again, the Orange Knowledge Program is offered by the Netherlands, and that allows you to attend a fully funded short course in different fields at different universities. Yali Regional Leadership Center, it's funded by the US embassies, and I think applications are open at the moment. They have an ongoing leadership program, really interesting. Other opportunities with the African Union or the World Bank, they have a young professional program. So again, many different opportunities that are out there. Okay, last part of my talk, we'll just focus a little bit on things you should consider, important points to keep in mind when you're planning your study abroad and also your scholarship journey. I'll start with the study abroad tips and planning. The first one, and this is so important, is really to take a lot of time to plan and prepare this. If you're planning to study abroad, schedule enough time to go through university applications, or firstly searching for universities and programs that you might qualify for, and then also plan for your scholarship application in addition to that. And it's not just, the application process, which usually closes around 6 months before the actual start of the program, but you will need to get your documents ready, apply for a visa, you have to move abroad, you may be required to do a little course before you actually start your program. So just take enough time to plan and prepare this. I usually say about a year, just to be on the safe side in terms of doing your research, finding your program, applying. So this is really key. Don't start in October and plan to start your studies in January the next year, because that will probably just not happen. And the other thing is, do your research. See this study abroad and scholarship journey as a bit of a research project. So consider things like your application and eligibility criteria. I've mentioned this earlier, both for scholarships and study abroad, or generally university programs. Each program has different criteria. Some are only open to certain qualifications, certain nationalities, certain documents are required. So make 100% sure that you've read those, you've understood those. If you don't understand them, reach out to the university or the program, ask them to clarify. Be aware of the deadlines and the start dates. Different countries have different start dates to the academic year. For example, in Germany, academic year starts in September, October. In other countries, it's January. So if you're planning to study abroad, do your research on that, and also check with your different universities. Some of them also have different deadlines, different start dates. So be very aware of that. And then the last point also ties in a little bit with eligibility criteria. For example, some universities require you to do an English language test or to do a GRE test. They require certain documents, and of course you also need those for the visa. So really do your research on that for the specific country, university, and course that you're looking at. And yeah, this is also, I think, quite an important point. Personally, I think it's very important to be ambitious when it comes to your career plans. I think this has also come through in Dominic's talk and in George's talk. Aim high. There is no reason for you to step back and aim for the smaller things. But at the same time, you also have to be realistic, especially when it comes to university or scholarship applications, right? If you weren't a first-class graduate in your undergrad cohort and you want to apply for a master's at the University of Oxford, it's not very likely that you will get in. Not because you're a terrible person or because you're a failure, but just because for this particular thing, you don't meet the criteria. So if that's the case, don't spend 3 months preparing that Oxford application. Rather look for smaller universities, different programs, other funding options that may not be as competitive and that may be more realistic for you to attain, right? So yes, shoot for the stars, but also make sure that your rocket is built the way it's supposed to be, if that makes sense. And then, yeah, this also ties in a little bit with do your research. Take it as a project. Make a list. I always tell people, make an Excel list of the universities you're looking at, of their eligibility criteria, of the programs that are available, of the deadlines that you have to comply with, because that will help you keep track of the different things that you're looking at. It will help you know where you're standing, and it will just structure that whole process a lot better. And then last but not least, yes, money matters, in addition to the tuition fees, because quite often when we think about studying abroad and maybe you get a tuition scholarship, you think, okay, great, I can go. And then we forget about things like living costs, travel costs, accommodation, and so on and so forth. So keep those in mind when you're planning to study abroad, and make sure that you apply for funding that covers that as well, or that, for example, you can get a student job when you're abroad to cover those costs. So just be very aware that it doesn't stop with tuition. Which brings me to the last point, scholarship tips and applications. Most importantly, and this actually ties in with a lot of emails that I've been receiving recently from students who have applied for university, who got accepted, they have their acceptance letter, they now need to confirm within 3 weeks, and now they need a scholarship. And the course starts in a month or two. They haven't sorted out their funding. And it's always very heartbreaking for me to actually tell them, it's not very likely that you will manage to get funding within the next month. Most scholarship programs have a 6-month before the start date application period, more or less. So look for a scholarship before you need it. Look for the scholarship first, and then apply for universities that can be funded by that scholarship. That is one of, I think, my biggest pieces of advice. Don't get to a point where you've applied for university, you've gotten in, and now you have 3 weeks left to sort out your funding. And that actually, what I do, this is something that I've adopted, make that search for opportunities an ongoing process. So don't just look for funding when you're planning to maybe go and study abroad next year, but make looking for opportunities part of what you do. Check online scholarship portals, see what's out there, sign up for newsletters of foundations, scholarship programs, universities, check social media, follow scholarship programs there, because you never know what opportunity you may come across that you might need next year. So just to be aware of what's out there, and to also, find those short-term programs that maybe you didn't even plan for, but you find something, you qualify for it, you apply and you get it. So make that an ongoing thing in your life. And then when you apply for scholarships, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Same with university applications. Don't just apply for that one perfect place or that one perfect scholarship, because most likely other people will also think it's perfect. So apply for several programs, several universities, several scholarships. And just, in case it doesn't work out with the perfect option, you have a backup and a backup of the backup and a backup of that. And the wider you cast your net, the more likely you are to catch the fish, right? Both for scholarships and university applications. And then again, be persistent. Sometimes you apply for a program and you don't get it just because that year your competition was very strong, or because maybe whoever sat on the selection committee didn't like your application. But that doesn't mean that you're not worthy of that. It doesn't mean that if you reapply next year, you won't get it. Just because you've been rejected once, it doesn't mean you will be rejected again, right? So just let it go. If it happens, we all get rejected, for programs, for applications, but reapply. Try again next year. The experience you had throughout that first process will help you next year. And then last but not least, ask for help. Don't just do this whole thing on your own. Get help from wherever you can. ask your mentors, ask your friends, ask your university lecturers for assistance, let them look at your documents, and also reach out to other organizations. And I just, before I close, just want to put out a few points, how Africademics, for example, supports students. But as I said, there are many other platforms out there. So we do share a lot of information on our social media channel. We've put together a scholarship compass series that introduces individual programs to you in a bit more detail. We have a weekly news flash that sends out scholarship opportunities via email. We have, as I said, a website and blog where we share stories. We do have a new WhatsApp channel where we also share daily opportunities on WhatsApp groups. And we do have the University Ambassador Program, where we actually bring information to universities and to students. So there are many things that we do, but there are also many other ways in which you can get help. And I really, really encourage you to do that. And that's it from my side. Thank you very, very much. And I look forward to our question round.
Again, I was muted. I apologize. Thank you so much, Lena. That was amazing, informative, and really a lot of the things that most of us really need to pay attention to, or the questions that we have about planning ahead. I know that for a lot of us, it's just, oh, I have this, I want to go here. And so we start looking for, and it's usually like a month to whenever you need to turn in your application. So thank you for those tips, planning ahead and actually having a plan, a strategic plan towards getting those specific goals, scholarships for those schools. So before we go into our last session, which is our Q&A, like we've done before, I'm going to leave the survey for the third session. I'm going to leave it here. Okay, I will answer a few questions in just a bit, but I'm going to leave the survey here. It's same as we've done before. Just a few questions that you can just click on and do that. So we're going to go into our last session, which is our Q&A. This is where we open it up for everyone. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's anything you want to add to what we've talked about today, that's this is where we're going to go into that. So I'm going to go into our chat and look for some of the questions that were asked in the beginning. So I know that when George was talking, when Dominic was talking, and when Lena was talking, some people had some questions, but we're keeping them till now. So I'm going to go in and get some of the questions so we can answer those. If whilst we're doing this too, if our speakers have anything else they want to add, please feel free and do that. If any of our participants also had something to add, please unmute yourself and you can go ahead. Okay, some of the questions have been answered. Okay, I think one of the questions was asking about the smarter goals. Zainab was asking have you used objectives and key results, that's the OKR method, versus the smarter goals, if there's any difference between the two. If any of our speakers want to have anything to share on that. I know the only difference between the two is the OKR is usually short term versus your smarter goals are more long term, like Dominic explained. So if you're looking to be able to measure some outcome for your organization or measure some outcome for the goal that you set for yourself, maybe for a week, for a month, you're usually good with OKRs. But if you want to, throughout your career, throughout your education, if you want to set specific outcomes and measure those or be able to keep track of those, then you're good with the smarter or with the smart goals. That's it's usually time specific. It's the difference between the two. Okay, this is from Pooja. Pooja wants to know about some specific questions that a student should be looking to ask in order to choose a mentor. So what are some of the questions that a student should be asking in order to choose a mentor? So I'll open it up to all our speakers.
Okay, thank you, Angela. I'm going to take that. So as I mentioned in my presentation, we normally try to start looking out, but we actually have to start looking inside. So the questions that you would have to start asking yourself are questions about you. Who are you? What are your talents? What are your interests? What do you have? Because a mentor cannot give you anything beyond what you can make of yourself. So begin to ask yourself those questions. After that, move on. Where do you want to go in the next, say, 5 years, 10 years? At Meet Mentors, when we interview, those who come to our program, I ask them those questions. Where do you want to be in the next 5 years? Because that shapes it gives a plan to where you want to go. So some of these questions would help you to know who to even have as a mentor. And the truth is, sometimes you will come into contact with certain people who are great and very successful, but they may not be the right people for you because you know yourself. And that is so important. You have to know yourself first. I have personally had the chance of connecting with a lot of people. I said no because their path of life is not the same as the path of life that I want to pursue. And because I know myself well, I did not, seek any of them as mentors. So please know yourself well. Know yourself. Know where you want to go. If you don't know these things, Meet Mentors, we can help you to identify who you are, your talents, your all the things that you need to know to be able to get a right mentor. So begin with yourself before you look outside.
Thank you. Anyone, Lena, you want to add something to that too?
Not really, because that was exactly what I was going to say. Exactly. I mean, it's exactly like George says. I mean, know yourself, know what you want, what you need in terms of mentoring, and obviously that also applies if you're mentoring someone else, because it's really it's not a one size fits all approach. It's really a very individual and personal thing. So yeah, I can just reiterate that. Start with yourself and know yourself, and that's really your starting point.
That's good. Yes. Thank you so much, Lena and George. Our next question was actually for Dominic, but I think he went off for just a bit. He's trying to get back in. Um, so Elijah was asking, how did he know that he wanted to be a lecturer and how did he go about it? So whilst we're waiting for him, I'm an assistant professor too, so I can answer that.
Exactly. So you can answer that question, Angie. I was thinking about that.
So yeah, I can answer that question. And to start off, I didn't know that I wanted to be a professor. I just my training that I've had in going through school, I knew that at some point I wanted to be able to share that knowledge that I was getting, and I wanted to be able to give students that opportunity to be able to create knowledge, to study, but not just the studying part, to be able to learn, right? So for me, it didn't start off as knowing that I wanted to be a lecturer. It more or less came in whilst I was going through my training. And it's also because of the mentors that I've had, really because of the mentors that I have. Started with my mom. She's also a lecturer. But being in school, talking with my professors, looking at what they do, looking at the impact that they were making in students' life, not just individually, but as a collective, right? Helping you figure out your life is basically what professors do. You come to class, you study, but essentially, most times we're helping you to figure out, is this going to work for me? So it's like a mentor mentee relationship, but unofficially. It's usually about professor and student. But I knew that that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to give students that opportunity to um, just think, right? Create knowledge, facilitate that whole process about studying, creating knowledge, and then more importantly, about applying that knowledge that you've learned. So, Meet Mentors is one of these amazing ways that you can do that. You meet people who are already working, people who have gone through the process, and they're willing to help you also get there. So, it's an amazing process, really. It's not usually you don't know that you want to do it, but you kind of come into that realization as you go through mentor mentee relationships and also training for your career. So I hope that helped answer that question for Elijah. Our next question is, let's see. Okay, I think Selom has a few questions too. I'm gonna keep going and see if we have any. Okay, this is for Lena from from Joanne. Joanne says, are there scholarship opportunities for those wishing to pursue graduate programs in the field of psychology and mental health, psychosocial support? If so, in what countries are these opportunities most?
Hmm. Yeah, so it's always a very tricky question to ask me about a specific field or a specific university, because I mean, since we started, we've shared about 1,000 scholarship opportunities. So my brain is limited in terms of how much it can keep track of those. But generally speaking, what I can tell you is that there are several universities and several programs that offer scholarships that are not tied to a specific field of study. So you get general scholarship programs that say you can study at this university for any program that you choose. And psychology is certainly covered there. What I would suggest, and I think I've also popped that in the chat, maybe just send us a quick email with your qualifications and your field and what you're looking for, and then we'll check in our scholarship database and see if there's something available for you. Generally speaking, you can also check out the DAAD database. That's for studying in Germany. They have a nice searchable database where you can look for your field of study. Study in Holland, study in Sweden also have similar databases. So you can have a look there and see if you find something. But yeah, other than that, I'll be happy to have a chat with you and see if we can find something in your particular field.
Awesome. I hope you connect, and I hope that answers the questions too. I think our next question is from Gifty. And she says, I want to ask Dr. Ajay, where is Dominic? I want to ask Dr. Ajay whether he would advise that one pursues a PhD when he or she has no plans of carving out a career in academia. No. I mean, you like, not no as in do not do it, but let's break it down a little bit, right? You don't have any plans of carving out a career in academia. Some different fields do not require that you have a PhD in your field in order to have certain qualifications or be able to do certain things. In academia, you are required to have a PhD in order to teach at the undergraduate level, at the graduate level, at the doctoral level. You would have to have that. So it really depends. And this is some of the things that Leonard, Dominic, and George have said from the beginning. It depends on what you want to do, right? You have to think of long term who you are, what your purpose is, what your aspirations are, and what specifically your goals are. If you're looking for something that is away from academia, you have to do a little bit of research. Look into that field specifically that you want to go to, and then look at the people who are there in positions that you want to be able to occupy at some point. So for me, at some point, I looked into positions like the CDC and look at people who are there. What do they have? What kind of qualifications do they have? Most of them have a PhD and another terminal degree like an MPH, which I have too, is because that is what is required in those specific fields. So first start off with what you want to do, review, just do a little bit of research into what people in those positions that you want to occupy or you want to have, what are they doing and what do they have? If they have a PhD, look into what type they have, right? If they don't, look at what type of degrees they are usually in. And then that would give you a really broad idea about where you can go. The PhD is very specific. I have a PhD in communication. I cannot teach a class in, say, psychology because I'm not qualified to do that, even though I have a PhD, right? So you think about specifically where you want to go and then start from there. Do a little bit of a research, look into what those people in there, what kind of qualifications or what kind of lifestyle they have. And then you can try to carve out yours to match that. So the no was no, think about what you want to achieve, right? Not just because you want to have a PhD. So I hope that answers the questions for Gifty. Okay, so Dominic is here. I think he's still joining. Dominic, if you're here. Um, okay, you're mute. You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. Yeah.
Yes, I had to switch to my phone. Somehow I got a problem with my laptop's
Oh.
Zoom.
We're happy to have you back. So,
Yeah.
gift question was about whether or not you would advise if someone pursues a PhD when they have no plans of being in academia.
Um, that's a good question. I think to a large extent, I would say most, well, PhD has often led to academic positions, or mostly research and academic positions. But I see PhD as a qualification that essentially really trains you on how to do research, okay, how to identify a problem, come up with strategies to solve it, assemble together resources and tools you need, and so on. So in that context, I wouldn't say it's limited to academic positions alone. And you never know. As you know, things progress and so on, I feel that there'll be more and more need for people having qualifications, especially in this area of being able to um, split issues up and be able to deconstruct it up and come up with strategies to solve them, put them together. So in a sense, even though it's often led to academic positions, I don't think it should be limited to that. Okay. Now, that's the first thing. Second thing is probably also depending on where you would want to maybe settle ultimately. Let's say if suppose you get a PhD, the question to ask yourself is where would you want to be living? Where would you want to settle, ultimately? And that may also help you know whether you would want to actually go and pursue the PhD, because I think probably at this stage in some countries or in some areas, the PhD will actually limit what you can do, in the sense that you will have to go into lecturing positions, because nobody will hire a PhD, let's say, to in their firm for whatever reason, maybe because they don't think they need it. But in other places, they would. I don't know if that's making sense. So let's probably in another country or where things are a bit different, they would be happy to have a PhD join the banking sector because they may realize, oh, you do your PhD in this particular area and we need that skill. But in another place, when they see PhD, automatically they know you're going into the university to lecture and to teach. So yeah, it shouldn't limit you. It shouldn't. I mean, you shouldn't be limited by what you can do with a PhD. But if you, in your mind, you consider that maybe I would want to make impact in this area, and you realize within that area, it looks like a PhD is often, focused in the academic area alone, then you may want to consider whether you need to do something else. I don't know if that makes sense and it's helpful.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think you've said it really nicely. It's about where you want to go and what the
Yeah.
requirements for specifically. Okay. We have a question from Junior. He says, when do I need to pursue a master's degree? And should it be necessarily related to my undergraduate course of study? I'm going to leave that up to all our speakers.
Yeah, I would take that. So one, I would still go back to it again. Where do you want to be? You start with your own self. Where do you want to be in the next 2, 3, 4 years? Where do you want to be? Do you need a master's degree to get there? If yes, then yes, pursue it. As to whether it should be in relation to your undergraduate degree, yes and no. Some programs would require an undergraduate degree in a particular field to get into it. Other programs will not, especially if you have got work experience and other experiences to prove that you would need that. If you want to study in a place like Canada and maybe in the US, they would want you to write a statement of intent. You have to prove to them why you want to study that program. And normally it's not so much about your undergrad degree, it's about where you need that program to take you to. And so think about all these things, and then based on that, find out which program you want to pursue. If the master's degree is what you need, yes, go for it. I think that is very important. And maybe I'll speak a little bit about the PhD stuff. So when I studied in Denmark before I came to Canada. When I came to Canada, my initial plan was to finish my master's again, which was a second master's degree, and do a PhD. So first year of my program, I had a chat, time to talk with my professor. And she really advised me. She was like, George, I wouldn't really advise you to rush into a PhD. That was a word she used. She said, think about the same issue. Look into yourself. What do you want to do in the next few years of your life? If you want to work and get some experience before you come back to take a PhD, that is great. If you have not identified a very good PhD topic that you want to pursue, I wouldn't advise you, because most people start PhD and do not finish. Some drop out first year, second year, third year, because it's intense. And so if you have not identified something you really love and want to pursue in research, it's not the right time to go. And so when she gave me that advice, I realized I had moved here with my family. I needed to settle with my family. I needed to, do things. As Meet Mentors have been in my heart, Dominic was talking about time, since 2009. It was something I wanted to really birth out. I had the passion and the dream, and I felt that taking a PhD wouldn't help me to, roll out some of these issues. And so I paused for some time to move on with this. And I can happily say that if I'm going back, when I'm going back to do my PhD, because I'm going to do it, when I'm going back now, I'm well informed about where to go because of the experience I have had since 2016, after I finished my second master's degree. I've worked for almost 4 years now. I've gotten a lot of experience in Canada, which I didn't have at the time. So I know most of us from Africa, there is, someone said, I think in Africa we have a mindset of PhD, meaning you have to be a lecturer. Well, but my thought is like, if you studied, you have to get a PhD. It's not so much about that. It's important if it fits into your long-term goal. If it doesn't fit into your long-term goal, you would need to pursue that. In Canada, where I live now, in most jobs, they will ask for the years of experience you have. And sometimes PhD holders cannot get it because they don't have that experience. So once again, I would say start with yourself. And if you don't have the support, connect with MeetMentors, connect with some of these organizations. We would help you process, give you the advice, and the training you need to be able to make that right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, George, so much. So we've kind of come to the end of our time here, but I wanted to, since we're all here, just a few more minutes so we can answer a few more questions, and then complete the last survey, then we can kind of round out. So if everyone is in agreement, I want to take just a few more questions, and then we'll answer those and be done with. Okay. So one of our questions that I think is one here is from Richard. Richard says, what would be your advice to an undergraduate student who wishes to move straight into PhD? What are the advantages and disadvantages? And then what will be the preparations they would need to do in order to get to that point? I think this is really important. So are any of our speakers want to address that?
I think I can help answer that because I know Dominic went straight from undergraduate to PhD, and I think in Australia there is that opportunity, so that if you do well in your honors program in your undergrad, actually the honors program means that you have some research component to it. So after that, you can apply straight for a PhD in Australia. So the only issue with moving directly from honors program to PhD is the fact that you will have to sometimes work extra hard to really make that gap, because many a times after undergraduate, you do a master's to build up your skills. then you get more experience in the lab. If you are a lab-based person, then you go on to a full-blown PhD research. So that is what happened, and that has been my experience with those who have had a direct transition from undergraduate to PhD, and it's very common in New Zealand and in Australia. And I'm currently in Australia, so I can understand that context very well. So it is possible. However, sometimes you have to work a bit harder to get comfortable in the PhD program. I think Dominic also is online because that is the pathway he went through. Thank you. Hello, Dominic.
Yeah, he put a thumbs up, so I think he's supporting
Oh, okay.
what he said.
Yeah, okay. So that is that. Yeah, sweet. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't go through that route, so I wouldn't know. I went through the accelerated masters into the PhD, and that's a little bit different from undergraduate. I'll take one more question, and please remember to complete the surveys so we can send out our certificates after the survey is also taken. So we'll take one more last question, and then I'll leave it to George to give us the closing remarks for the event as well. So our last question here is, well, let's see. You know what? It was the question appeared twice. So that was our last question. Amazing. I'm gonna leave it to George to give us the closing remarks for the workshop.
Okay, thank you very much, Angie. I think I would start. I will end by saying thank you to everyone. Thank you to Angie, who has been, emceeing the whole program for us. Thank you to Dr. Dominic J for joining as a speaker. Thank you to Lena from Africademics for your wonderful presentation on scholarships. And then thank you to the team that have worked greatly behind the scene, to Salom, who is our programs advisor, and for Tina, who is our operations advisor. They've been working very, very hard to get this program out. So, and then I want to say thank you to everyone for joining. I know we've all joined from different countries. Somewhere it's going to be 11 p.m. in some countries, but thank you so much for joining us. We are glad that this program was able to come out. I mean, you joined, and that was why we had this program. So we thank you very much. We want to say that the information we've shared here is to be applied in our lives. There's no need to share information if it wouldn't be applied. And so please, whatever information or piece of information you've received today, move on with it, whether it came through what I said, through the questions, through Dominic, or through Lena. Make sure that the steps you have written down right now to move on with, pursue that. If you haven't, I would advise you to get time, debrief after the event, and then know the step to take. Next year, because we are just ending November, we would have so many programs coming your way with some of our partners. And so please want to encourage you to connect with us on Facebook and on LinkedIn. You can also sign up on our website to get all the updates of the program that we have for you in the coming year. What I said initially is that we provide one-on-one mentoring. So if you need one-on-one mentoring, connect with us. We have lots of mentors who would be able to support you in that. And also, if you join from an academic institution or any organization that is into mentoring or people development, as I always say, and you are interested in building partnerships with us, please feel free, connect with us, and we'll be very happy to work with you. So finally, we'll be sending out certificates to all those who join. I know Salom put in something in the chat for you to send him your name as you want to get it appeared on it. Please do that so that we can put the right name on the certificate. Apart from that, I would say, thank you to everyone for coming. And if you have any question, please feel free to connect with us. We would be happy to answer that for you. And share the information so that next time you can have some of your friends and other people joining. We realized that some people could not join because the program was done through Eventbrite. We got some few emails about some challenges, so we would improve it in the future. And so please if you have friends who couldn't join, share the information with them, but tell them we are sorry. And hopefully next time we'll be able to work on our issues and then get everything done very well. So thank you very much. Andy, I know you're the MC. If there's anything that I missed out, you can add it.
Nope, you've summed it up perfectly. No.
Okay. So thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, have a good time, good night, good day, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Finally, just
Okay. Woo.
Salo, what's your face? Let's see your face.
Yeah, I guess we are the only ones left, guys.
I had to remove some people because the rest I'm like, let's go. What are you still there for?
Oh, well, you have to give them time to go out.
Oh,
Hey,
no,
guys,
I didn't.
you guys did it. Team, you did it.
But Ajay, please, we want to see your face.
Yes, sir. Someone on mute. Oh, okay.
So good.
Okay, yay.
Can someone? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, you guys did a very good job. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Angie, I think you can stop recording now.
Okay.